Okie dokie, this is a video tutorial on making a cake. So, first things first, going to go over tools and ingredients. Now, I went to the shops yesterday, very lucky, found these reduced, heavily reduced. Got to use them quite quickly though. So, I'm going to use 4 of them today. 4 lovely eggs in today's cake. I'm also going to use sugar, self-raising flour, the remaining cooking chocolate I've got. Found a buy one free offer on chocolate spread a while ago, so that's what I'll be using for icing. I've still got some cocoa powder left over, whole milk powder, vanilla essence, got some vinegar here, which I will be using to make buttermilk, various measuring vessels here, oil, and of course I'll also be using water, but generally don't count that as an ingredient. Now, to make the various tiers of the cake, we've got big pie dish, which I'll be oiling on the inside to make it bubble. Multiple layers. All of these are side spring open ones, except for the smallest one, which, as you can see, you just lift the internal portion out, because it's small enough to manage that. So I'll make the various tiers up with that. Here's going to be my mixing bowl. So first things first, I'm going to chop these into smaller chunks, and then I'm going to measure out and administer the various ingredients. That's it, chopped up. Sorry, there's going to be quite a few cuts in this video because frankly I'm going to need 2 hands for a lot of what I'm doing. But there we go. So here's a tip here. Also generally useful in baking. If you want to avoid residue getting stuck at the bottom of bowls and not getting included in the mix, put liquid in first, then powder, and finally anything chunky like nuts, seeds or chocolate chips. Same applies to when baking bread. It's a little tip I thought I'd mention. Also, shout out to my girlfriend Bunny, who finally pushed me to get this done, because I'd been meaning to make a cake for ages. When I got these eggs yesterday, I finally had no excuse, so she just said, "Go make the eggs, Cyber Smith. Yeah, make the cake. Okay, so we're only going to use a very small amount of this. I'm going to use roughly equal amounts of this and this. As I said, 4 eggs. Going to use some of this. I'll check the exact measurements. The amount of this we'll use will depend later, but this only gets added in the next stage. So I'm going to have to measure those all out. But I've got, this actually came with the bread maker. So this is an American cup size, but it's also got milliliters in it. So I'm going to double check my exact measurements. Next video segment should be with all the components in the bowl. Okay, so we see a lot of the ingredients are now out of the way. I've got the liquid in. So that is 1 standard American cup of oil, 2 standard American cups of buttermilk, which is hot water, milk powder and vinegar that's been left to mix for a little while and thoroughly stirred, and 4 large eggs and a little splash of vanilla essence for flavour. So we stir that, that's our liquid. And because the liquid has gone in first, we're not going to get anything sticking to the bottom of the bowl, hopefully. So now I'm going to measure out my amounts. Again, I'll have to cut for that bit because I will be using 2 hands for it. But the powder goes in next, the last thing to go into the chocolate chips, and that should ensure it's all relatively good at mixing. Okay, I have measured out my 3 cups of sugar. I'm just going to add those in. I just wanted to mention this before I measured out my 3 cups of flour. Should you get self-raising flour, or should you just get plain flour and baking powder? Generally, self-raising flour costs the same as plain flour. So it really comes down to what do you use more often. If you use self-raising flour at least as often as you use plain flour, buy self-raising flour and plain flour. If you very rarely use self-raising flour, buy mostly plain flour and a little bit of baking powder, because otherwise it's a waste because you're buying self-raising flour you won't use. But just buying plain flour and baking powder, then mixing them together, it actually ends up costing you a little bit more than just buying self-raising flour, because self-raising flour, in my experience, costs the exact same as plain flour. So that is just something to consider. And as you see, this is all mixed really nicely together. So I'm going to then get, so 1.5 cups of this after I've measured 3 cups of this. Blend that all together, then add the chips. Okay, so I've measured all that out. We've got our 3 cups of self-raising in there. Here's 1.5 cups of cocoa powder. I'll stir that in. That will be the mix. Then just add the chocolate chips. And I can begin greasing up the tray, the trays, plural, the baking dishes, in which I'll make the cake segments. So, and of course, because I added liquid first and powder second and then chunky objects last, there's minimal residue sticking to the bottom and, no residue at the bottom, minimal sticking to the sides. So it should be quite easy to mix this. I'm just a little hesitant about doing it one-handed because I don't want to knock anything over. So, as said, just going to keep mixing that. Get that nice chocolatey cake mixture. When that starts to feel about the right consistency and I've got all the powder in, I can just add the finishing touch with these. Pop that tray in the sink. Pop this, actually might need the knife later when I'm cutting it. I've got these two spatulas which will come in handy later. Plastic, not metal, because I don't want to scratch the trays, but I'm just going to stir this in, and this is going to be my mixture. So, next step is to preheat the oven. Make sure I've got 2 shelves to put things on, because I've got 4 of these. Put the biggest and the smallest on one and the 2 intermediaries on another. And I've just got to grease these up internally. So I'll use the oil and a piece of kitchen towel to just lubricate the inside of these so nothing sticks to them. We've got them ready. I'll pour the mix in to the 4 bowls. Not 4 bowls, the 4 baking dishes. And I'll put those in the oven to bake. As I'm just going to mix this in, make sure this is all well mixed. So this is going to be quite a large cake. Unfortunately, girlfriend lives in Canada, so I will be eating it alone. I'll be eating it alone over a matter of days. So this is a very large, long-lasting cake. This is probably better if you've got a large family or people to share it with, because this is going to be a lot of cake. I'm almost a bit concerned I didn't use my larger mixing bowl, but no, it does all fit in. My larger mixing bowl I'm actually hoping to use to cover the cake when it's done, just so I can keep it covered properly in the fridge, because it's going to have the chocolate spread over it as a cheap form of icing. I don't want to put cling film on it directly. But okay, yeah, that's a nice mix. So, preheat the oven, grease the baking tins. Okay, got my oven preheating, got these dishes pre-oiled. I'm just going to pop the cap back on this. Don't want any spills. Haven't made too much of a mess so far. Let's move these to the side. Okay, I'm going to give this one last stir just to make sure I've got a nice proper mix of all the ingredients. But yeah, you can see a nice even colour, so that seems to have mixed quite well. Might be very cheeky and lick the spoon. You know what they say, never trust a thin chef. Okay. So, want to quite evenly pull this out. Don't want to put too much in any one container. And actually, oh, this is quite heavy. How about I hold the camera in my non-dominant hand and use my dominant hand for this? Yeah, that would be smart, Cybersmith. Don't necessarily want a very thick layer in each, but I'm just going to dole it out relatively even amount. I don't need the thickness of each layer to be perfectly the same, but I do need it to at least create a thin layer for each. Obviously we go up like a ziggurat, as the Mayans did, or the Egyptians, or any of the other various pyramid building societies. Yeah, weirdly enough, there's a pyramid in Antarctica, but the Illuminati denies it. There's allegedly one in, is it Croatia? Or is it Ukraine? Somewhere like that, but the government denies that too. Okay, got nice mix. I might actually just end this, grab the spoon, and then make sure I'm spooning it out properly. Okay, use the spoon to get the last of what was in there out, so that should be all of it now. Again, assume that it will rise to about double size, so this isn't going to overflow in any of them. Now it's just putting them in. As they're not hot currently, shouldn't be any trouble, just as long as I'm careful. Putting them in barehanded. I will need oven gloves or a cloth to take them out. But if we put these in for, let's say, 30 minutes at a temperature of around 175. 175. This is not a fan or convection oven, so just use my convenient air fryers as timers. Do a bit more cleanup, and yeah, leave that for 30 minutes. Okay, so timer has dinged. I'm just going to give a bit of a check. See how well baked this is. Looks okay. No, if you see on the blade, yeah, that is not drying, so that is still liquid. And yeah, that's very much liquid on the bottom. Okay, they need longer. I'll reset the timer. Okay, so these two are done. I've taken the metal collars off, so I'm hoping these will be done too. I think because they started on the bottom shelf and this is not a fan oven, I think they took a little bit longer. So I'm just going to see, is this finally, yeah, yeah, mostly done. Right, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Just got to, yeah, that one's mostly done. This is, just going to leave this one a little bit longer. It's the biggest, it's going to take the longest to go. Just got to work around the edges. Make sure nothing will stick. Yeah. As I said, it's going to be very difficult to do this with just two hands, so I am going to need just one hand, so I am going to need to cut again. Okay, so managed to get the base off, get the metal part away from underneath. Now it's just a matter of applying a layer to this, moving the next bit on, applying a layer to the top line, applying a layer, putting the next bit on. Need to get the metal bit out from under it. That's the trickiest part. Had to use a bunch of knives for it. No way I can do the rest of this one-handed, so you'll next see it when it's done. So, haven't made too much of a mess. All metal sections are removed, and I've got the layer of spread between each as kind of a mortar to the brick. Now I've just got to add another layer of spread over each one. And there, unfortunately, layer 2 did split a little, but I'm hoping that the fact all the other layers held together and that I've kind of mortared between it will keep it together when I add the final layer. And yeah, one more cut and then it'll be done. Well, there you have it. The cake is done. A bit of cleanup to be done, but not a huge amount. And I think I'll help myself to a slice of it, but only a small slice, because while I'm not completely sure how many calories this has, I'm going to err on the side of a lot. And just to check, yeah, should be able to fit this over it to keep it fresh a couple of days. And that is how you make a low-budget chocolate cake.